Going live. You're live. It's taking its time. Okay, maybe it's live. I haven't done the Sunday morning boot reviews. I think I get more viewers on Saturday than Sunday now, so bumping up in the schedule maybe permanently. I don't know. But definitely trying not to do too many redundant boot talk things. So this one might be kind of redundant, but it was a video I planned to make about a week ago and didn't get around to it. But I have quite a few pairs of these things now. So I don't know if I'm a total expert, but I wanted to talk about arch support, not as the thumbnail might imply or the header or whatever, as just an advert for PNW boots, although they are kind of the ones that are they're going to be your go-to models for a reason. And I don't have boots from every single one of them. And I didn't bring in the Truman boots that I'll be talking about, although they're PNW adjacent. Anyway, if you grew up as I did, kind of brainwashed by my mom, for lack of a better term, I kind of believed, and these are a lower heel stack than a typical cowboy boot, so I'm gonna make that distinction. This is more of a roper style. I kind of believed that anything that had sort of this drop in this heel automatically had arch support. Okay, so that's specifically not true. And for those of you who have fallen arches or flat feet or planar fasciitis, however you pronounce that or spell that, I don't necessarily put myself in that category, okay? But I do notice myself getting foot fatigue more when I wear boots that don't have any arch support, but not all boots that don't have arch support are the issue. Now, backtracking historically, when I first, kind of get to pick out my own shoes, around kindergarten or whatever, kindergarten, first grade, somewhere in that time frame. The first ones we were getting were Vans, and I didn't bring in a pair of Vans. If you don't know what Vans are, you're like the one person in the whole world who doesn't know what Vans sneakers are. Like, I don't know what to tell you. But my mom would always ask the guy behind the counter who's, earning $2 an hour in those days or whatever, do they have enough arch support? And he's like, yeah. He didn't even know what that means. And they do had slightly more than these, which have absolutely zero. So if you're the one person in the universe who doesn't know what Converse All-Stars are, I've done videos about both Vans and Converse and blah, blah, blah. So all the other cool kids were wearing these in 8th grade. So we stopped, most of us stopped wearing the Vans and started wearing these instead. And these became my staple for like 2 decades or something, at least, that I wore these, not exclusively, but almost exclusively for a very, very long time. And of course, they absolutely murder your feet. Even if you don't have foot problems, if you wear those for 20 years, you might start. Disclaimer, right? Again, I'm not a podiatrist or a doctor or anything. Consult with your physician before you assume that you have flat feet just because you wore stupid sneakers, or inexpensive sneakers. But anyway, and so typically, yeah, I did have cowboy boots that usually had the taller heel, a little bit more like that than that. But again, the taller heel does not automatically mean more arch support. It doesn't even necessarily mean that much more drop. It's kind of a optical illusion that can be going on there. You do feel a bit taller, obviously with the slightly higher heel, riding a little higher in the saddle, but it's not really doing anything on the inside of the boot that's going to help your feet or, whatever, overtly. So a couple years ago, like I said, several years ago before I got these, I had gotten the taller heel logger boots that also, not Pacific Northwest, had no arch support, and I was kind of used to walking in the higher heels. I've since shortened this heel stack to be a little more comfortable. This shoe boot, the Carolina, as I've complained about in other videos, didn't quite fit me right. So I had experimented with a couple different insoles, and then I, tried to modify the heel stack, which it's not terrible, but it's because, again, it's not necessarily angled correctly for the amount of drop it's supposed to have now. But without the arch support, I didn't think it would really matter. But they were still kind of sloppy, which is the neoprene. And so I put in the other insoles, and they were better. Blah blah blah. But it's not the high heel that I necessarily had the problem with. I just don't always need a high heel or want a high heel, especially if I'm not needing the high heel to accommodate for the extra arch support that the Pacific Northwest boots have, which many of you will have already seen videos about this, and I have several videos about this. But so, not to labor the point, but the title of the video is arch support, so yes, we're going to be a little bit redundant here. That I have several pair, and of course most recently the Thursday Challenger, which is an inexpensive-ish attempt to mimic those other boots with maybe premium leathers sometimes and not breaking the bank at the other time, but not really the same exact boot, and the fit of them being, but having, instead of a solid chunk of rubber here, we do have the leather insert into the heel stack, and we do have the more aggressive tread, and blah 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 blah. Okay. And as I noted when I first got them, I don't think the arch support is exactly the same, and I don't think the fit is very great. So I do have the neoprene in here that actually came with a different set of boots. But I haven't experimented with insoles all that much after, checking a fit. So it is kind of, from brand to brand, the arch support does feel a little bit different because this does not have the same arch support as the whites, where I guess depending on the length of your foot or maybe the fit of the boot or whatever, like I don't think this is the exact right size for me. I think I should have got a wider width. The placement of the arch may or may not feel like it's in the correct spot. So these are just very uncomfortable overall in 3 ways. They're too narrow. The arch is very pronounced where I don't want it, not quite fitting my contours, yada yada. But then on the other hand, I got these other ones from the exact same company where the arch support feels more or less fine, and they're technically a size bigger, which should be too big but fit snug, but not too big, but not too small like the other ones that are the right size, blah, blah, blah. So I took a really long walk in these and had no problem whatsoever. Whereas taking, shorter walks in these is like, I can't wait to get them off my feet. So that can be a thing. I'll come back to this guy. But so I had put the neoprene in these before I put them in these, I think, briefly. But the neoprene is just a flat pad. It's not an actual supportive thing. And then these, which as you can see do not have the high heel and have a flat outsole here. There's no extra arch support, but they do have an arch built in them, which I had complained that I couldn't feel at all, and thought they were even more slight than these. So for those of you who missed the video where I compared these already, you can go back and watch that, because like I said, I'm going to try and keep this at a reasonable length. What I did finally do with these, after I was using the neoprene to just soak up some of the extra roominess in the thing, because I was kind of sliding around in them and it was reasonably well but not perfect. I had taken these, I don't know if that's mildew or just stains or worse, but I'd taken these out of an old pair of boots. Don't worry, I have newer ones in the bag still that I can use when I finally get dedicated to a pair of boots rather than something that looks too grungy. But so this did not come with the boots that I was using them in, but I had bought them separate. And like I said, I went back and bought a couple other pairs several years ago and put them in, and they worked perfect to make those boots just fit my feet better. Again, I wasn't really worried about the arch support. They were very inexpensive boots. I went through a couple pairs of them already. But what I found was when I had them in this boot is that even though there's this pronounced looking thing going on here, it just collapses when you put your foot in it, right? This doesn't actually create that much more arch support. It's flimsy, and then I weigh over, 100 pounds easily. It's even kind of ripping there. Like I said, I'm gonna have to get a new pair out soon, but so that just doesn't. It looks like it's going to give you arch support, but it's not really going to give you a significant arch support. So when I had it in this boot, it was doing the perfect job of making it fit almost correctly, but it wasn't adding me any arch support at all. So it's still pretty uncomfortable overall. And I was walking in and they were kind of floppy still, but not as bad as, a thin wafer thing like this that does absolutely nothing. So I turned around and decided I would try them in here. And of course, at first, I absolutely could not stand it because it took up too much room in some of the spots where I didn't need as much room taken up. And I was really reluctant to take the neoprene out of there after I had already kind of trimmed it and refitted after because I took the good ones that were in here and put them in there. And they don't still fit quite correctly in here. And so I trimmed a brand new pair to get them to, kind of fit in here better. They fit in here better than they do in here. And I was juggling boots, but so I was really reluctant to pull them back out after I had gone to that effort. But then when I put these in here, a new magical thing happened where that little bit of sort of arch works in conjunction with the actual arch that is in here that I couldn't feel before. And so these actually, even though at first they were really smashing around in the toes and making my heel ride up a little too high in the heel counter area, but they're old, they're smashed. They've been walked in plenty. You can see they're kind of grungy. And so after a couple hours, I wore them 2 days in a row and I did some chores and things. Yeah, now these are great. Or as close to great as they're going to be, even though I don't know if I'm still ever going to be able to use them for their intended original purpose of warm weather hiking boots. But for chore boots and all that kind of thing, it's like, yeah, I can walk in them now. The arch support feels like it exists. So great. Again, I had bought these in an extra wide width, so I got a little extra toe room. So if you buy the standard sizing and they're already tight on you, or you won't be able to, do that comfortably. Again, this isn't a fix-all, but for me, that works now much better than this. So I'm pretty happy that, I'm not hyperventilating as much about trying to get these rebuilt now that I was really going on and on about before, because I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them and and blah, blah, blah. Anyway. And like I said, for a more casual boot, these are surprisingly just wearable, even though they're not the same size as this. Oh wait, wrong brand. I'm sorry. No, it doesn't matter. Still, I sized down for this and then went wider, and now they were a little bit too wide, like I had said before. Different company, but almost the same kind of weird fit issues anyway. And of course, like I said, the arch, I haven't worn them in a while. Maybe I'll try them again tomorrow and see how it goes. And give them a little bit more wear now that I have other boots to kind of compare them to a little better. Whereas I meant to show these earlier. These, of course, don't have any arch support either, but they're meant to be kind of walked in a different way than a standard heel stack boot. I mean, again, they're not going to flex that much, so you're kind of walking a little more flat-footed, but they don't overtly seem to kill my feet. And they do have kind of like everything that's wrong with this becomes okay with this, because they do mold to your feet and create their own arch that, again, you're not going to have an issue with this becoming, too flimsy or whatever. It's, an inch and a half of solid stuff. So like with a pair of Converse sneakers, what, typically happens is like, immediately you feel this part of the foot against the ground, and that initial, they're like pillows kind of cushiony thing, like ends almost immediately. But it does contour a smidge by default, right? Same thing here, except with a lot more support underneath. So they kind of create arch support in a way that this boot will not. Does that make sense? Or at least that's the way it feels. Somebody will say, "Oh, you're totally wrong because blah," and it's like, okay, well, that's fine. But like I said, I can walk around in these for a couple hours and like my feet aren't totally killing me. Whereas if I walk around in a pair of Thursday boots for a couple hours, they're great at first. And then after 2 or 3 hours, I'm like, okay, I'm done. Right. And just to show them off, I had gotten these other whites in a different size and had similar issues with trying to find a proper insole. And what I came up with was the crappy gel soles that were in a different pair of combat boots way back when. And I tried these in several boots, including this, which I forgot to mention. And when I said I had tried 2 different insoles, actually I had tried 3 different insoles in those, because I had tried these, but only for 5 minutes or something. Maybe I wore them once for an hour or 2. I don't remember. But these, again, same thing. These don't really have any arch support because it's just a totally flimsy thing with a heel. But since this already had arch support, it's better than the neoprene because this heel sucks up a little bit more of that room that was too big. And so that worked out because there's already arch support in here. So I didn't need to worry about it. So I ended up with another solution. And since these boots are pretty old and crappy that I found used, putting an old crappy gel sole in it just seems like, well, there you go. They'll get used up together into finality, and that will be that. But so what are we talking? Like 1, 2, 3, because I got another pair of these that I haven't even done yet. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have like 9 pairs of arch support boots now, I guess. So yay, because I got these that have the cowboy heel, and I got the more recent pair of these that hardly anybody's watched that video yet. Oh, I forgot about the other pair. I have the lace to toe ones that only 10 people have watched that video or something for some reason. Don't know why. And then of course the ones that I got originally, the loggers that I got after the whites, Rose Anvil ones. These were the test boots that I got of the Builder Pro and the Quick Ship or whatever it was. So this was my trial boot, where at least I got my sizing on my nicks correct on the first try. Whereas, like I said, a couple of these other things, it was kind of touch and go, hit and miss. So yeah, for whatever reason, this is the same size boot as the black ones, but this one just fits better. The arch is in the right place. So like I said, I was kind of gambling when I tried those other whites ones. I did that whole video about whites fit, trying to figure it out, and still not quite reaching a total conclusion. Anyway, so right around Christmas, I was talking to my neighbor, and I think I was wearing these, and he was asking, new boots, and I was like, yeah, they have the arch support and the da-da-da, and he's like, and I said, well, Nick's has arch support inserts now that are like $70. And he said, oh, don't bother with that. You can get some on eBay for like $12, $15, something like that. And he was right. I found a company that was in El Monte or whatever. All Chinese import though, and so I ended up getting a couple pairs. Now I had not really used any of them, and I don't know which boots they'll all fit in. Again, I'm not going to put them in here because I don't think I need them. And I could have put them in any of these, but I got extra ones anyway just for down the road. So I did end up, the reason I put the ones in here is because I now put a pair of those in here. So we're on insole number 3 or 4, I lost count, for the Carolina boots, because I'm absolutely positively determined to get my money's worth out of these things, even though I've, you know, taken a hacksaw to them and complained about the size of them and yada, yada, yada. And so, yes, I put these in here, and you can see they still have the same kind of contour as the other one, but now it's been reinforced by a plastic or rubberized compound and some other stuff. What I did notice right at first is how much more uncomfortable they were than those other arch support ones, but also squishy at the same time. So it's kind of squishy and hard, and so kind of jarring. So actually a lot more painful to walk in originally than I actually imagined. Kind of weird. That then when I got home though and took them off, like my feet didn't hurt at all. It was kind of like I suffered while I was wearing them and then felt fine, as opposed to, you know, like I said, walking in a pair of Thursday boots and feeling, you know, okay, and then getting home and my feet being like, oh no. So that's weird, but I don't have a lot of hours in them. Like I said, I wasn't sure if I should make this video now or not, because it seems kind of premature, because I only just got the stupid things and I won't, you know, I've barely tried them out. But again, they were only, it was like if you buy a second pair, you get a discount kind of thing. So they started at like $12, and then the second pair it went down to 8 or whatever the deal was. So I think I got like two for like $20 with free shipping or whatever the holiday special was. So we'll see how it goes. So yes, so that's me just kind of, like I said, experimenting. Like I said, I don't necessarily guarantee that these are going to be the ultimate solution for every single pair of boots, because I don't even know which other boots I have that they would fit correctly in, although the size, again, the size would be fine for this, but this already has arch support. So adding more arch support to arch support, I don't know that would be totally necessary. But again, when those wear down, again, I think I will be still looking for something a little bit more significant and substantial than that to fill them up. So maybe, again, something to prolong my amount of usable wear out of these before I have to pay for a rebuild, because that's just money, and they're like I said, otherwise perfectly fine boots. I just didn't, you know, like the way they fit. Same with these. These won't last as long as these, obviously. So if I get enough use out of these before I send them off to the thrift store, great, because they're not boots that I'm really worried about doing a rebuild now. When I first got them, I was going to make that the project, and then since then I bought like 6 other pairs of things for so less priority all of a sudden. But again, these were not cheap, you know, and I got the good price for them on the whatever the sale was at the time or whatever, but they definitely cost like 5 times the amount of these. But like I said, if you get the right fit the first time, then that doesn't seem so bad. And they definitely have the arch support, like I said, that was definitely a lot more comfortable than the other ones. So I don't know what else to add to that. I don't know what I'm forgetting to mention. Like, yeah, I mean, if I really wanted to, I could try to put these in here, but I know then I could never get my foot in this. It would be just too tight. But this isn't a type of shoe that I typically wear as a, you know, walking shoe or even a work boot. So how often they get worn is however often they'll get worn when I have a bunch of other boots. Like I said, of course, I've also had those for years and years and years and years. And the fact that I just never wore them much is, again, because I don't really have the occasion where I want to wear them that much. So it's not like I'm losing any money now in the long run after I already, I get more use out of them now than I was previously just because I'm throwing them in the rotation more often. But again, being less what I want to wear when I want more of this kind of thing. And again, these not being perfect either, but an easier solution than rebuilding these at the time. So like I said, I already have these. So now making these work, hooray. So, I can use these as work boots too if I really, really, really want to. But this might be more comfortable for, doing stuff in the garage and whatnot, where again, I don't really feel like I need the high heel. I don't necessarily feel like I need the arch support, that kind of thing. And so, the other day I started wearing the new ones of this. Is this throw? Yes. The other Packer boots. But then when I had to go do chores, I did not want to mess those ones up because this is the work leather. Those are the nicer leather. So I instantly went and changed into these. And like I said, mashed down that foam and felt great in no time, at least. So, okay, I'll stop talking now because, maybe some of you will watch this tomorrow and more of you will hopefully watch it on Sunday and see how it goes. But if you're not, like I said, guys argue with me about, the one guy was saying he had lowered the heel stack on this and had no problem with this scraping the ground or whatever. I don't know if that's true. I usually don't argue with people and tell them that, I know more about their feet than they do. So again, because I had done the same thing with this with seemingly no repercussions, but again, no actual arch support. So I don't know how well that worked out. And what was the other guy? There was another one. Shoot. So one problem with doing these off the top of my head is I might forget something. Tech. Most of you probably watch Boot Philosophy or whatever. He had bought a pair of Nick's, different model than the Logger, but definitely a really high heel stack, higher than this White's one, for a similar thing, but with this. In fact, I don't even think it was this heel, but I think it was this heel height, which you can see is a pretty significant Western riding boot heel. And so at first he said he loved it, and then in a more recent video he said he didn't like any arch support and he couldn't even stand wearing Birkenstocks, because this is my default indoor shoe. I can't stand when I don't have, I cannot wear regular flip-flops at all. So, am I going to tell him he's wrong? Again, if he doesn't think they fit him comfortably, then I guess he never will like them. If the doctor tells him he better start wearing them, then that's between him and his doctor. I'm not his doctor. So, like I said, I'm not, but I'm, I'm definitely a different kind of foot than him, I guess, because, like I said, for the most part, even though this gets kind of annoying having this extra granny boot high heel thing, it's the sacrifice for the undercarriage supporting that extra leather that, like I said, for most part feels better when I get home. Okay, so I talked for an extra 4 minutes there, but I remembered those two anecdotes. So hopefully that was useful to some of you or none of you or somebody or something. And as always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I'll try and reply in a coherent and timely manner.